And we're live again. I think I'm going to need Mr. Shock to fix the title of the stream. Because we're not Gothercising. We're doing the opposite of Gothercising. We're Gother munching something. Okay. Well, we're going to get everything started as soon as we have a couple more eyeballs in the room. You can enjoy the view of my knife. Not sure it's particularly interesting. Does it even look like it's in focus? Huh. It sure is. Gothic grub. Yeah, I need to get some black food dye. So today, for all of you really eager beavers out there, we are doing bread, buns, and bacon, and a surprising amount of garlic. So I'm going to very quickly get an audio check between my mic and the background music, unless you can tell me if it sounds good. Still want to wait like 2 minutes for the sound to kick in, and a few more of you beautiful people to sneak on in. Ah, Mr. LiveTube, can you change the title? I'm totally derping on changing the title of the stream. Yeah. In the meantime, if anyone wants to play the home game, this is the base recipe for the bread that we're using today. There's a couple of really minor changes that we're doing. I'll go over those as I get to the ingredients. But this recipe that I linked, Opa is right. Oh, you know what I got one better. Boom! Oh yeah, we got all sorts of Opa. Oh yeah. Opa is one thing that we don't mess around with here. Oh, you're the best. You are. It actually updates real time for me. That's this technology is just mind blowing. The background music, is it loud enough, or is it a good mix? Because if it's good, I'm just going to dive right into this. Oh yeah. Heck yeah, Lou man. Great to see you. How are you doing? You were you had that stuff happening. Hope everything's going well. And am I already getting a bit of a delay? Hope not. Okay. Yeah, it'll fit in here. So again, today, bread, buns, bacon, and something resembling a BLT. I did not have a chance to get out of Casa de Vlahos, so I was stuck here, and I don't have tomatoes, so I can't do a proper BLT. I know, shame on me. And I normally don't have milk in the fridge, and I've only got heavy whipping cream, which is fine, because if you want a richer, more luxurious, tastier bread, you can start with the basics of just water, flour, bit of sugar for the yeast, splash of oil, boom, you can make bread, not a problem. But salt, of course. I like to use milk or cream instead of just water, and you can always use butter, as us Kanakistans say. I'm going to go turn it up. I'm going to turn up the music in the background. And I'm going to do one other thing that's hopefully fancy here. Me. Yeah, it works. Okay. Let's get some volume.
Test, test. Test, test. Test, test. Oh, music, what's going on? Test, test. That's bizarre. Okay, I found the problem. It's my record box is not cooperating.
Okay, terribly sorry about that. The ambient music has been achieved. Achievement unlocked. Go team and kapla. So what we're going to start off with is 1/2 cup I have water from my kettle that's already hot. I just want to double check the temperature isn't much above 110 Fahrenheit because that risks damaging the yeast. And I do have some water from a kettle that I just boiled. French press. Okay. Cup and a half of warm water, 1 tablespoon of yeast. We got us an old school active dry yeast. Running dangerously low. Oh, when I said running dangerously low, I wasn't kidding. Good Lord. We have 1 tablespoon left. Someone needs to go refill. And for yeast to do its thing better, I like to feed it some sugar. We're going to give this 3 tablespoons. This bread recipe is it's a touch on the sweet side, but I do like the bit of sweetness, and it works fine for normal bread, and it's even better for buns. People just seem to like a sweet touch of sweetness on their buns. This is just old school real bread. No weird ingredients. Gonna dig up a little whisk in the shape of a fork. Just gonna give this a really, really quick. Yes, Snaggle Whisker, that's exactly what you can do. And I'm sure it will always be well received. Wade, you asked a question last week, and I think I glossed over it, about the difference of the yeasts. This is active dry yeast, and I think your question was the difference between this and instant yeast. I think I just said something really quickly and almost out of hand, and I apologize for that because I shouldn't have. The difference is the proofing required, or the activation. Active dry yeast, you need to do this step. You need to let it revive. Instant yeast, they're smaller granules, and you can throw that straight into your mixture. And during the kneading process and the other water, just hitting the yeast will activate it. So those are the big differences. And then the third, I want to make sure I get this right, the third type of regular yeast that you'll get at your local grocery store is a fast acting or rapid rise yeast. It'll be something synonymous with that. And the difference between that and the active and instant yeast, these guys, you can let the bread rise multiple times or the dough rise multiple times and punch it down, let it rise again. With the rapid rise yeast, it's usually good for 1 rise, and that's it. For the vast majority of the time, I go with 1 rise on the dough, sometimes 2. You can go more. You develop a thicker, floofier, bigger bubbles in the bread by doing it, but having more proofing cycles. But the dough and the bread itself starts tasting a little bitter, which is fine if you're doing something like a sourdough. But for regular, like white flour or 50-50 or all-purpose, whole wheat, whatever, letting it rise once is fine. Twice if you want something a little more floofy. Normally for the bread, I let it rise once. I punch it down. I put it into shape. I let it rise a second time when it's already formed, and then I bake it. And for me, that's kind of perfect, because otherwise you're spending the whole day playing with your dough. Because each rise of the dough takes between 1 to 2 hours, and after a while you're just living to make a loaf of bread, and you should just go to your store and buy one. So Wade, I hope that explains the question. And Snaggle Whiskers, that's 100% correct. That would make it Play-Doh. And, well, we claim to be, we're of legal age here. I don't know if we're actually adults. I think there's a slight distinction. Oh, speaking of adults, I've got a question for Mr. Shock since he's here. I put in the request to the Twitch guardians of the community standard guidelines, and I asked them about making edibles on the stream. So when I get the answer, and I'm expecting they're going to say it's fine as long as the stream itself is flagged adult only for content, is that something you want me to do on Thursday on MyLiveChef, or should I do that on my stream? I'm happy to do both. I've never made edibles before, but for some unknown reason, undisclosed reason, I have some cannabis, which is completely legal in Canada, and I think it's kind of obvious I'm of legal age. We're allowed to buy it, we're allowed to have it, consume, etc., etc. So up here it's all perfectly legal. I know that in some states, I think it's not. So I don't know if Mr. Shock wants to make a poll and ask people if they want to see a live demo of edibles being made. If it's allowed. I don't know. It's up to you guys. I'm not huge into green culture, but I do have a prescription, and it's there's a lot of benefits. I'm not going to get into the debate of whether or not it's good for you. We're going to pretend we're adults and we can make our own minds about what we should and shouldn't do with our bodies. But I've never made edibles. I don't think I've ever even had edibles. Come to think of it, no. So. Yeah, if there's any interest, let me know, or let L Shock from MyLiveTube, who is MyLiveTube, let him know, and we'll figure that out. Again, completely depends on what the community standards folks say about what the ruling on edibles is. In the meantime, I'm going to get my other ingredients ready. The other ingredients for the bread are very, very simple. So in here we have our water, warm, we have some yeast, we have some sugar. This needs I like to put in a tablespoon of olive oil. It's going to very precisely measure a tablespoon. Glug, 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 that's a tablespoon. A bit of fat in your bread is just better. It's just better, especially butter. Okay. Play-Doh is awesome. Okay, we can enjoy the show of the yeast activating here. I know that this yeast, it is a tough crowd, right? And I'm the guy on stage with a microphone. I'm just, I get no respect. I'm getting killed up here. Okay, we've got 3 cups of flour. I hope my audio is good. I'm really skeptical about this camera over my network. Last time I think it was fine, but I might have to network my wireless mics and figure that out. It's a little tough to... Oh, here's the other question. Is the audio syncing with my mouth or my bad dubbed Chinese action flick? 1, 2, 3, dos, cuatro, cinco. Okay, so I have my 3 cups of flour, and I've got a 1/4 cup kicking around off to the side, and that's going to be used. Perfect, thank you, Snaggle Whiskers. The extra flour I'm going to use to flour the work surface, and if there's always the question about how much liquid you need. when you're making your dough, because as usual it's super dry here, so I'm probably going to end up using an extra quarter cup, maybe more of liquid than you will if you're in a humid climate. And depending on the number of factors are kind of crazy, like what kind of flour it is, if you're using milk or cream, or what kind of cream, or if you're using butter for liquid, how much oil you're using, the type of oil, the protein content of your flour. There's a bunch of factors, how much salt you're using, all that culminates the reason I'm bringing it up is because you'll have to adjust how much flour or liquid, usually water, you're putting in your recipe. So when you're kneading the dough, when you're mixing everything together, don't be too quick to jump into adding more flour, adding more water, because it's easy to screw up the recipe. When in doubt, just knead it for another minute or two, make a small adjustment, knead it for a minute or two. Just keep doing that. Worst case is you're gonna knead the dough more than you need to. See what I did there? I used knead a couple of times. They're like homonyms, right? Big brain. You'll get a better textured dough from the extra work. So I mean, worst case is you make your bread's going to be better if you have to make those extra adjustments. But if you do need an extra tablespoon of flour and you're 100% convinced of it, just lightly sprinkle it on top of your dough, work it in for at least 2 minutes, and then think about adjusting. Now, if you obviously have just this clump of dough that's if you ever experience this, the term shaggy will stick out. It'll make a lot of sense to you. If you have shaggy dough, or if you have really wet dough, or if you just have this super dry mess, you can make your adjustments a little more quickly than using the extra 2 minutes of kneading. But in general, just keep working the dough. We're going to pretend nobody saw that. Okay, so while this yeast is still doing its thing, it's almost ready actually. It's almost ready. I want 1 teaspoon of salt. Sorry about bumping the camera. That should be the one and only time today. Everyone gets 1. Oh, a couple of common questions. Do I sift my flour? No. I really don't see a point. If I was making cake, if I wanted everything extra fluffy, if I wanted to incorporate more air, I would. But for normal bread recipes, for buns, for breadsticks, and so on, I don't think it's really necessary. 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. We're gonna make bacon powder sort of later. So here we have, again, 3 cups of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt. We're going to loosely whisk this together over in here in this bowl. We have 1.5 cups of warm-ish water. We have a bunch of sugar, a bit of olive oil. The yeast is mostly active. I'm going to let it foam up just a little more. It's always a good idea to test a little bit of your yeast first, just before you start mixing things into it, in case the yeast is dead and you need to make a different recipe. Or if it seems that the yeast is not doing what you expect it to do, but it's still sort of working, you can just add more yeast as well. You run the risk of your bread tasting extra yeasty. But at that point, you're probably trying to salvage your ingredients and your recipe. Maybe your love life, maybe your relationships, maybe a stay of execution with your governor. Who knows? Who knows? There might be a serious reason to make bread that you can't just put off because your yeast has decided to kick the bucket. It looks like there's something in here, and it might just be the shadow, might be a trick of the light. Because I thought I stabbed at this thing a few times. Okay, and full disclosure, because I don't like to obfuscate anything, there was a hair in there from my bare arms, and ain't nobody want to eat that. So normally what I do before I start kneading the dough, I will very vigorously exfoliate these fuzzy arms with flour. And if I was doing this for guests, especially if I was doing this commercially, I'd be wearing gloves. But I in general don't like wasting the latex gloves on something that only I and the missus are going to consume. Are there any questions at all? Because we're going to get to some fun stuff in just a couple of minutes. What are the different types of flour? How are you spelling flour? See, that joke just doesn't work in a text-based chat. Because in my head it's hilarious. But how do you know if the yeast is good? If it's doing this, if it's foaming up, then you know it's good. If you put the yeast in warm water, like 105 to 110, 115 tops Fahrenheit, and you let it sit for a few minutes and it doesn't foam up at all, if it doesn't start bubbling, if it doesn't rise, if it doesn't do what you're seeing here, then it's not good. If it's doing this, it's good. It's pretty Boolean. Now, if the yeast is mostly on its last legs and it's about to be totally dead, it'll take longer for this to happen. And at that point, either add more yeast or just accept that you're going to have to let your dough rise for an extra hour to do its thing. See, in the way back oldie times, before we had commercially available yeast, people would mix their dough together into more of a slurry, and they would leave it out. Uncovered, they just leave their dough out with extra liquid, and the natural occurring yeast that's floating around in the air would land and do this. Crazy, huh? Sheer insanity. Oh, Boolean, that's genius. That is genius. Yeah, sometimes my science nerd background really kicks through. And if you can ever mock me, I highly encourage you to do so. I'm all sorts of good with being mocked. I'm usually deserving of it. So I'm going to go quickly exfoliate. Pretty Boolean. I got to remember that snaggle whiskers. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay. Oh yeah, that genius question about the different types of flours. So in general, there's 3 types of flour for making dough. There's cake flour, which has the lowest protein content. There's all-purpose flour, which has the middle amount of protein. And then there's bread flour, which has everyone? Everyone? It has more protein. And the reason that the 3 types of flour are measured based on the protein is because gluten, which is what we form when we knead the dough, it's a protein. And the overall protein structure of just regularly milled flour, there's a bunch of different types of proteins, and as we work it, we physically break the weak bonds. And just from mashing things around, those protein chains will start sticking together into the better structure of gluten, and it'll make a stronger bond. Uh-oh. I see some spinning on my interwebs. And it's back. Okay, good. So just over time from working the dough, you create more gluten. So the more protein you have in your flour, the easier it is to produce gluten, and the more gluten you'll produce. And the reason why a lot of recipes, especially mine, call for scalded milk instead of just regular milk. Scalded milk just means you bring it up close to the boiling point and then you let it cool down. When you do that, you kill the lactic acid, lactose, and that stuff prevents the formation of gluten. So I want the creaminess of the milk. I want the additional fat, I want just all the texture and nutrition and overall awesomeness that the fat from milk brings to basically everything. But I still want my gluten to form. That's not to say that a cup of milk is going to kill all of the protein in your flour. It's just going to make your kneading process take longer. So there's a little bit of the gastro science of all of this stuff. And if you listen very closely, you can actually hear the stuff bubbling. It's kind of cool. Hang on. Let's see if we can ASMR this. Can you hear that? Can you hear the fizzing? Amaranth ain't got nothing on me. Oh yeah. 30 subs and I'll start writing your names on. Yeah. On something. Let's get some focus happening. That's right, hashtag ASMR. So for the next segment of the stream, I'm going to start kneading the dough. We're going to get everything started, and then I'm going to do the bacon, and I've got a special thing with garlic that's going to be related while this is rising in the oven. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to very quickly turn my oven on just so the oven itself gets a little warm. I have an electric oven. I'm just going to let the elements heat up a bit and then turn off the stove, the oven, and I'm going to leave the light on inside of the oven, Betty Crocker style, and that's going to keep the box warm, and that's where I'm going to let the bread rise for a bit, the dough rise for a bit. I always have that bad language translation in my head. I was mostly raised in North America. I by default operate in English, but sometimes my other languages kick in, and I have a bit of a stumbling block with some words and some phrases. So that's my bad. That's my cross to bear, and it's something I just have to deal with. More spinning stream stuff. That's weird. A little disappointing. It's more than a little disappointing. It's very disappointing. Oh, the other question that does come up is the different crusts you get on your bread. Now we can control what the top crust, and to some extent what the side and the bottom crust looks like on bread. We can brush water on top. We can brush milk, cream, butter, egg, and any mixture of the above to get different textures and different effects. Yeah. Like adding an egg white, just whipped up with some water, you'll get more of a glossy top on your bread. Using an egg yolk, you're going to have a darker but glossy top. Using water, you'll get just a drier, crusty top, and that's the kind of top crust that you'll see from your usual grocery store in-house bakery. That's the kind of crust you'll get. It's a touch. It's a little light. It's a little light. And depending on the fat content of the milk you use, you'll get darker crusts. I don't recommend glazing with honey until later on in the cooking process. Honey is really cool if you want to have things like oats or salt or something stick to the top, but if I'm going to salt the top of something, I'm just going to brush it with either egg or with butter. I'm just going to sprinkle on some big clumps of salt, and it usually sticks. Is the stream pausing for everyone, or is it just my other monitor here? Yeah. Well, I know it's not my connection out because I tested it and I'm a solid 100 up and 600 down. So I hope the Twitch powers that be are happy. So anyways, this is foaming up. This is good. I could whisk this in. I could sprinkle the flour into this wet stuff. You can just dump it in. If you're baller enough to have a stand mixer, this next step takes anywhere between like 7 and 12 minutes, depending on the speed, depending on your equipment. I'm just going to give this a quick stir with the old heavy spatula. Then I'm going to get my paws dirty. I mostly start off with a spatula just so I can scrape the outside of the bowl. And keeping the side of the bowl clean helps prevent the formation of dry, crusty pieces of dough. You can always fix that by wiping the inside of the bowl with a damp cloth, or scrubbing it with your fingers, preferably if they're damp, or just kneading the dough and rubbing the ball around the side. It will pick up the dry clumps on the side, and hopefully moisturize it and get everything working the way you want it to. That takes extra effort though, and I'd rather just avoid that extra step, that extra work. Now, one of the biggest reasons why I decided to do something involving flour and yeast, let's just call it bread, 2 weeks in a row is because this is an essential skill. Yeah, snaggle whiskers, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why it's cutting in and out. If I see another problem, I'm going to take a few seconds to go test my network again. Yeah, I think I need to do that right now. Now that I've got my hands thoroughly covered in flour and water. Ugh. Okay, I'll be right back, and hopefully the audio is all fixed, and the video is all fixed, and the connection is all fixed, and everything's all fixed. I mean, I got fixed years ago, but is that oversharing? I don't know. Or is that an invitation? I don't know. Okay, we're back. Hopefully that fixed everything, because there was about 3 minutes of lag between what was on Twitch and what was happening over here. Might need to refresh the stream. Hopefully you don't. Snaggle Whiskers, tomorrow I'm doing the chaffle head-to-head contest between the different cheese-based waffle recipes. That's a keto thing, so there's no gluten. The only ingredients are, it's some combination of egg, cheese, almond flour, maybe a bit of baking powder, and mayonnaise, and then herbs and spices. So we can, if you want to tune into my stream tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be doing 4 or 5 different types of chaffle. It's a very, very keto thing. Yeah, gluten is Yeah, gluten-free cooking is a little tricky. There are flours that you can use for gluten-free baking, but at some point, I just don't want people to torment themselves by going for the substitutes that they can only have at specialty places. Just learn to love new food instead of reminding yourself constantly that you're being deprived unless you go to the expensive specialty shop. Yeah, Snaggle Whiskers it is. Like one of my good friends from my college days, he was diagnosed with celiacs, and I only half-jokingly called it the God hates me disease because I thought it was true. I had to learn how to do a whole bunch of gluten-free cooking for him. And if you have any requests, I'm happy to do gluten-free or vegan or anything else on my Monday streams. I'm happy to take on all requests. And if it's a keto recipe, whether or not you know it's keto, I'm happy to do those on my Friday streams. Okay, so this is sticky. I don't know if you saw the process here. I'm just scooping up from the bottom, folding it over, pressing down, kind of punching, giving it a little bit of a twist. Just working all of this together. It's still nice and sticky. So right here is where a lot of people I know are going to be tempted to just throw in a bunch of flour. Because it's sticky and it looks like if I added some flour it would come together and I think it'd be better. Don't. Knead it for a few more minutes and then find out. Aw, thanks. I also have one of those Discordia things that apparently all the cool kids have. Yeah, Wade, it's there's a lot of positives that I keep looking for, and one of them is people have had the opportunity to become more active at home if they have a home gym especially, or to pick up a skill or start reading, practice things that they didn't really have a chance to do because we used to go out all the time. Please send. Can I have more breads? From my experience, I know that I could add a tablespoon of flour to this, or I can just keep working it. But I'm just going to keep working at it till it's done. Like for me, I know that this is right in that middle spot where I can get away with it either way. Oh, look at you, Mr. Fancy Pants. Rosemary infused bread. Doesn't even sound store-bought. That does sound awesome. So one thing I want to do is just roll this dough. Oh, it's so sticky. Around the side of the bowl to try to pick everything up. It's like Spawn. No. The other symbiote. What the hell am I blanking on it? Venom. Grr. Just this sticky, oozy mass. Ugh. But how expensive is it to go next door to buy their bougie 10 grain? I mean 10 grain only. If it's less than 15 grain, it's just peasant food. Come on. Bread for the unwashed masses has less than 15 grains in it. Oh, you know what? $4 for a loaf for something that's made properly? That's not bad. That's not bad. And yes, there's nothing... There's very few... I don't like using hyperbole or... superlatives. There's very few things that are more comforting than the smell of fresh baked bread, especially first thing in the morning. Because you can take your dough, let it rise, and then wrap it up, put it in your fridge so it stops rising. It'll still rise a little bit, like the cling wrap's gonna be ready to explode. But you can have your dough ready overnight, get up a half hour early, and pop those little rolls into the oven for half an hour. And whoever you're trying to impress first thing in the morning is gonna wake up to fresh baked rolls. If that's not a good way to get to be late for work, I don't know what is. Late for work, of course, because you're spending time slowly eating the food, not for any other activities. Just saying. You know, the messy hands, that's my thing. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And if I did buy latex gloves for cooking, I do have some for hobby, but I'd spend a small fortune on it. By it, I mean the latex gloves. Okay, I think I'm about ready to call it quits and give this a quick little teaspoon worth of flour, but at this point I'm just proving a point. I'm just going to keep working this till the local lack of humidity fixes my issue. This is actually almost ready to go. Like it's coming clean away from the side of the bowl. It's still a little sticky, but it's not sticking to the side of the bowl. And it will come away from my hand with a little bit of prompting. Once this stops sticking to my hand quite so much, it'll be ready. So quick question, the audio was good and the stream is not freezing anymore? Whatever I did seems to have fixed things, I hope. The cat's very hypnotic. Mars approves, okay, good. As opposed to Mars attacks. I never saw that movie. Was it any good? Am I totally dating myself by making reference to a movie from 30 years ago? You know, that raises another question. Can I actually do polls in here? Poll. I don't have permission. There is no justice in the world. True story, back in the 90s, I was playing on a text MUD, as all the MUDs were back in the day. They were text. And I was very much obsessed with the Super Mario games. So I made a character just for player killing other characters. This one game called Reznor, named after the 4 fire-breathing rhinos from Super Mario World. And then my friends from Seattle were kind of pissed off at me because apparently I took their friend's name. Like, what the hell are you talking about? So unbeknownst to me, Trent Reznor allegedly played on the same server. And he was one of the few people that I had a really hard time hunting down and killing. So good for him. That's my name drop for the day. That by pure happenstance, I was playing on the same internet geek game in the 90s as a famous musician. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. It's like we're blood brothers now. We hang out all the time, you know, we get together. He's like, Vlahos, how's it going? I got a nasally voice, and my girlfriend makes fun of him. I'm kidding. Back when people had to read to play games. So this is actually coming together. True story. True story. I believe that mud was Karovnia. Run by Agent Dan out of some institution on the East Coast. Okay, so this has come together. It's still a touch sticky, but it's not sticking to my hand. This is really, really gluten-y. Like I could pull this really thin and probably stretch it so thin that I could see light through it without it ripping. That's actually one of the tests for the pizzeria dough. When you can pull it so thin that you can actually see the light through the dough without it ripping. Okay, it's ripping a little there, but I can see my counter through here and it's not really ripping. So this dough is properly beaten up. And yes, if I added a bit more flour and I was using a stand mixer with the dough hook, this would have taken something around 10 minutes, give or take a few, instead of the half hour with technical difficulties. But here we are. So from here, a lot of recipes will call to take this out of the bowl, throw in a tablespoon of oil, and roll the dough around in it. The reason for that is we want to get a thin film of oil around the dough. So when this thing rises, uh-oh, got a message. When this thing rises, the layer of oil will still stretch and protect the moisture. Or I can just give it a spritz with this. Bit of a cooking spray. Wait, I will get to that in just a second. Oh! Neat. Yeah, that would have been the same time. That would have been about the same time. Okay, so this I'm going to cover, and again, most traditional recipes will call for covering this with some sort of a tea towel, and it'll say leave it to rise in a warm, draft-free area. The reason they specify draft-free is because you don't want airflow encouraging evaporation. And the reason they say warm is because the heat still helps the yeast do its thing. What I like to do, even though there's a thin layer of oil on here, is still wrap this in cling wrap. It's going to keep all the moisture locked in the bowl and prevent any sort of draft. I lowered the bit rate and my speed is still wicked, super awesome, totally tubular. Maybe Twitch just hates me today. Again, the cling wrap is it's kind of overkill. Wow, it's all getting all grainy. I'm going to take a few seconds to point out the specs on the computer that's actually doing. Oh, they do seem good there. Okay. The computer that's doing the broadcast is 11th gen i7, 4.8 gigahertz with 32 gig of RAM with a 12 gig video card with SSDs, and really everything else is irrelevant. I've got one step below fiber internet because that's the best that I can get in my apartment, and it's rock solid. It's absolutely stable. So whenever I get connection issues, whenever I see frame loss or packet loss of any sort, I get a little irked. Now, first world problems. I'm not gonna, you know, go all mental about this, but I am a little disappointed. And it's not because it's directly affecting me, it's because this is bad for your experience, and I want you guys to stay tuned, guys and gals and pals, to stay tuned so you can actually play along and maybe just from watching it a few times pick up some of the skill that I'm trying to share. So that's going in the oven for a little bit. It's going to be, I'm going to let it rise for about an hour. So it's 6 o'clock my time. We've got lots of time for the stream. That dough is going to rise for at least an hour, probably an hour and a half. It's going to bake for half an hour after I let it form and let it rise just a little bit. We'll be done. We've got tons of time. We've got tons of time. Sorry about all the noise, because we have some fun stuff to do now. First, we're going to roast up some garlic. Well, this garlic's been hanging out for a while. It's a little embarrassing that this thing's sprouting and trying to grow legs and do all sorts of Cthulhu things to me or walk away. I'll put a stop to that, don't you worry. Don't you worry. I'm going to show that garlic who's boss. Terribly sorry about the noise. Solidor, thank you very much for the bits. Okay. Focus, focus. I got some foil. I'm going to take my garlic. I'm going to trim the top off. Unfortunately, I can't do my patented, patent pending method of claw on this. This is basically a ball. So I just have to find a place where it's flat enough between these little grooves so that the garlic isn't going to roll around. And with the claw technique, which is holding it like this, like a claw, knife runs along the knuckles. The business end of the knife doesn't get to the soft, cuttable, fleshy parts of my hand. I want to just very carefully trim just the tops of the entire bulb of garlic like this, so I expose all of the cloves. I'm going to do that on both of these bulbs of garlic, and hopefully it doesn't walk away on me. And if I have a casualty, too bad for it. I mean, I can always just shove this back in place, and that's fine for now. I just realized something. I don't think we have any kitchen hacks to share today. By we, I mean this guy. Poop. I don't think I have any kitchen hacks. It's what the kids call like a trick. It's like when you do something that's unintended. It's like new and creative. It's almost like breaking the system. And you're like exposing the underlying programming underneath the what's going on here. So what I have here is these little pouches, soon to be pouches of foil around my garlic bulbs. And what I want to do is give these just a little drizzle of olive oil. Just a little drizzle. Just a little drizzle. This is commercial stuff, so I don't care if I'm frivolous with it. And then just a sprinkle of salt. Well, it depends what you're trying to do. I like to have the top covered with the garlic. You put them cut side down on the foil. Well, that's going to encourage more heat transfer to get to the exposed side. So these, the cut side down would make them brown more. And I actually want them to brown uniformly. I think Snaggle Whiskers, that's a good question. I think that's what the difference would be. So these things go in the oven 350 for about half an hour. They come out and they're amazeballs. If you want the garlic to be darker / more sweet, give them an extra 5 or 10 minutes. But you don't want to go above like 40-45 minutes because then you're risking burning them. The other thing to consider is if the muffin pan you're using is shiny, which is more burny, which normally means you should use a slightly lower temperature, or if it's a darker cast iron style muffin pan. Yeah, I always do them face up like this. So I just take this and I just wrap this together, just pinch it, give it a little bit of a twist, and that's it. One there. Again, just bring the tops together, give it a little bit of a twist, seal that moisture in. So when I have the bacon ready, these are going to go in at the same time, 350, because everything's done at 350. And these will conveniently, coincidentally, be in the oven for the same amount of time as the bacon. So these two bulbs are ready to go. Because, dear friends, I think what I'm going to do is when the garlic comes out, I'm going to let it cool down. I'm going to bake the bread, and then the garlic hopefully will have cooled down enough that I can show you just how nice it is to pop out the individual cloves. Then I'm going to melt some butter and make some fresh roast garlic butter spread to go with our fresh baked buns. And see if I can't curry some favor with partner in crime, DJ Nuvo. So Snaggle Whiskers, when you put them cut side down, you have hard chunks on the bottom. That's kind of expected too. Like the way that I have them now, I have the root and then all that paper below the foil to sort of buffer the temperature, to buffer that cooking. Think of paper cupcake liners. That's basically what I'm cooking the garlic, the individual cloves in, but it's got its built-in paper cup. So if I cooked my cupcake upside down with the paper liner on top, what's the bottom of that cupcake going to look like? It's not going to be just brown, it's going to be really dark and crispy. That might explain what happens when the way you do it. Please let me know in the comments. I'm kind of curious to hear. But while we're waiting on Snaggle Whiskers, we're going to get this bacon extravaganza underway. I am a huge fan of cooking everything on parchment paper. Today's no exception. I could trim this, don't really need to. I'll fix it later if it's getting in the way. Sadly, this bacon isn't magical halal or kosher bacon. It's not yet Friday, so I get to eat. These Nordic Ware sheet pans are pretty much brand new. I should say I've had them for a few months. I've used them each, maybe a dozen times. But I'm pretty careful with my gear. I try to be anyways. What? Piece of foil odds from the shears. And right about now is the time in the stream where I should bring up that all the ingredients here are simple. I mean, yeah, I have some high-end olive oil, but I mean, oil is oil as far as the bread's concerned. All of the ingredients, they're basic, nothing fancy, nothing frou-frou. None of the equipment is gadgetry. I mean, I used a silicone spatula, a fork, a whisk, kitchen scissors, a knife. I could cook the bacon on a silpat. Yes, parchment paper might be considered a little frou-frou, but I highly recommend that you pick up a roll. You can get these at your dollar store. Just keep an extra roll on hand. Not only does it protect your sheets from a bit of abuse, I just find the cleanup overall is easier and better. So I'm going to quickly trim the packaging. And for all of you keto fanatics out there, you can save the pan drippings, also known as keto frosting, all the bacon fat for a rainy day. Actually, don't mind keeping, it doesn't last very long around here, the excess bacon fat from cooking packages of bacon, because I will fry up like eggs or steak or something in bacon fat. Okay. So this bacon is not particularly high-end, straight from Kirkland / Costco. But today, I'm just going to separate a few sheets here. You're going to learn how to weave bacon. Now these sheets, these strips are not exactly uniform, which makes them ideal, which makes them perfect for demonstrating, because these aren't perfect. And if you get Celador, what isn't delicious in bacon fat? I mean, I'm delicious in bacon fat, right? Just want to make sure this is on the camera. Have to slide this up just a bit. This should be all in screen now, right? Okay. So a few strips that are separated. And what I'm going to do is one strip. I'm taking my time here. Like if I wasn't chatting, this would be a lot quicker. The very first strip takes a little longer than the rest. I'm going to try to get the pieces that are matching the most, fitting together like a jigsaw puzzle, side by each. This is not going to be perfect. No, this is just regular bacon from Costco, Kirkland. I know people in the UK, you normally don't get bacon like this, and it's called Canadian bacon or something like that, because what they call bacon in England, I think, is what we call back bacon, and that's normally like the pea meal encrusted mini ham that's somewhat cured. Anyways, this stuff is awesome. You should be living on this. So I'm just going to overlap these strips, one above, one below on the first row here. And the first row is the most time consuming of all the rows. And again, this bacon is, I'm not going to say it's subpar, it's garbage. Like, this is the worst shape of bacon that I've seen from Kirkland yet. I couldn't have asked for a worse / best material, ingredients to demonstrate what to do when things go bad. It is actually kind of perfect. So one on top and then one underneath. Yeah, the weird thing is I really like when things don't work according to plan on the stream, for a couple of reasons. The first one is, if it happens to me, it's probably going to happen to you. And if you see the perfect setup every time, if you see the perfect ingredients, the perfect everything, Are you going to know what to do when things don't work? No, you're going to freak out. You go, oh my God, that Vlahos guy lied to me. He's such a scam artist. Like, he ripped me off. I want that 5-pack of gift subs to MyLiveTube. Do it now. I want a refund, damn it. Do it now, 5 packs. 5 packs for shock. Lots of Gother size. Do it. Obey. I don't see those 5 packs. I got to work on my salesmanship. So, while you're internally debating whether or not I'm serious and you should be donating 5 packs, even just for a New Year subscription, come on. We're going to take the strips, which is every other strip that's underneath, and we're going to fold these back. I'm going to fold it back and fold this one back. We're going to take the next strip and go across. I'm going to gently fold these back and fold this back and fold this back. And then we take the next row that's underneath the top part. This cross piece is above this strip, so I fold it over. Skip one. This cross piece is above the strip, fold it over. Knit 1, purl 2. I don't even know if that's accurate. I'm just going to pretend it is. Across. Fold it down. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Fold it over. Fold it over. Fold it over. Dooba-dooba-doo. Fold that back. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. And I'm pretty sure we can get one more strip across here. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. Do. Bacon weave. So, if these strips were more uniform rectangular shaped, this would look better. But, I mean, how bad does this really look? Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So I have room on the sheet here for the rest of the bacon. And what I'm going to do, because all of this is basically doubled up, I'm just going to take pairs of strips. And I'm just going to bake these off to the side. Doop-a-doo-ba-da-boo. Off to the side. And then this last, I have 2 strips left. Perfect. I'm doubling up because they're going to be cooking at the same rate. Like the bacon, the woven bacon here is basically 2 layers. Because underneath each one of these intersections, which is the whole weave of bacon, there's 2 layers of bacon. So this is going to cook at the same rate that these double strips are going to bake. Yeah, topology, it's wonderful. See, applied math, love it. I knew that degree would come in handy one day for bacon. There is a way that I realized not too long ago that I could use half strips of bacon lengthwise and then weave in crosswise alternating strips to be able to weave longer bacon weaves. Because one of these days I'm going to go to a friend's restaurant that has a conveyor oven, and I want to make like a 10, 12 foot long bacon weave. Just so on the other end of the conveyor, we're going to have like 10, 12, 20 foot, whatever it is, giant sheet of bacon that we're going to use to like wrap around something fun. One of these days. One of these days. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is take this, which is slowly rising. It's already starting to puff up nicely. I'm going to preheat the oven to 350. 350 is the magic number for most cooking. That's where the Maillard reaction happens the most. When I wash my hands, I can type in the spelling. That's basically where proteins break down, sugars caramelize. The browning happens in basically all food. In general, it's where the magic happens. It doesn't have to be 350, but 350 seems to be the sweet spot. And that's the real reason why the vast majority of basically every recipe is cooked at 350, because of science. Wade knows his stuff. Heck yeah. I'm going to wash my hands. I'll be right back. Sweet. Let's see if this works. T, yes. Does that work? Just waiting for, ooh, spooky. It's like magic. One coffee cup empty. Must reach for a spare. The question if fatty food is bad for your arteries, look up Ansel Keys. I'm not going to try to change anyone's mind. Minnesota researcher from the 50s, around 1958, he published a study which was basically used by nutrition educators and health manuals and medical textbooks ever since then. His study showed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, perfect correlation between high-fat food and bad arteries and cardiovascular stuff and heart attacks. And then 17 years ago or so, it was discovered in the basement of his of the hospital that he 100% cherry-picked his data, and he threw away a significant amount of data that completely refuted his original hypothesis. And there actually was no correlation. So yeah, the whole high-fat thing plugs your arteries is, look it up for yourself, and then you tell me if it's valid or not. I mean, some people that have studied different cultures for their diet, I think there was one study in Crete where it turned out that people were eating a fairly Mediterranean but low meat, high carb diet, were very healthy. And what was omitted was the study was happening during Lent, where people gave up the food that they normally eat. So the researcher did not know this, was not aware of it, or just didn't include it in the research. So what do we conclude? I don't know. There's a reason why you shouldn't be able to get a master's degree without taking a few courses in research methods or understanding what statistics are. Or really good showmanship if you want to fudge all your own data. From what I've read, and this could be wrong, so don't take your medical advice from an accountant or a Twitch streamer. The stuff with your arteries, with plaque forming, has a lot more to do with sugar than it does with eating fat. Because if it had to do with eating fat, why aren't kids dying of heart attacks from eating crayons all day long? And that's actually a serious question. It sounds ridiculous, but how many kids eat crayons? How many kids eat more wax fat from crayons than I'm going to eat from some of this bacon? I don't know, there's a couple of them. And I don't hear about kids keeling over from Crayola poisoning, although it is non-toxic. Not to get too controversial. I'd rather stick to easy topics like religion and politics and sports, right? Because no one's going to argue about those. Cheers. Or Marines. Like Warhammer 40k Space Marines, or... Snaggle Whiskers, yes, exactly. Hey, Metal Mando's on. I didn't see you hit the chat. How you doing, brother? Shout out Metal Mando _ Oh, I didn't know there was a joke about Marines eating crayons. Yeah, so, God. I'm about 100% convinced that the key to everything with our health, in general, basically everything comes down to controlling our hormones. So if you can get your insulin and glucagon under control from controlling when you're eating, how many carbs you're eating, controlling the insulin response, unless you have glandular failure, unless you have an underlying medical condition, you should be able to, vast majority of the time, you can correct being pre-diabetic or correct type 2 diabetes. If you're born with an insulin resistant system and you have to have external insulin, you can't, I don't think you can fix that with diet, not normally. But if somebody becomes insulin resistant because they're constantly drinking 6 packs of Coke, you can fix that. Things like sleep, if you can control your natural melatonin release, if you can control your circadian rhythm through the whole slew of hormones that are involved with that, including cortisol, including stress, because cortisol is a nasty, or cortisol, sorry, that's a nasty hormone. It's great, it's fantastic first thing in the morning because it helps reboot your system. It also spikes your insulin. It also helps your body preserve what you're eating and gets your system ready to burn carbs for flight, fright, but not freeze reactions. So if somebody's under stress all the time, there's a reason why they develop visceral fat, and it's because of the control of hormones. This is all well documented, but absolutely feel free to fact check everything that I say here. So just a few things for your life, like a little bit of exercise. Don't graze all day. Just have a couple of square meals. Eat reasonably balanced portions of stuff, and it doesn't really matter what you eat, but have relatively healthy food. You're going to do just fine. You're going to do just fine. In general. Again, if there's underlying conditions, you got to talk to your doctor and get the right meds or get things inserted or replaced or cut out. But I'm very, very convinced that if we can hack our system, if we can control our hormones, and you can do a lot of that through diet, through a bit of exercise, through a bit of routine change. Gothercise, that's a heck of a way. It's a heck of a way to help live forever. I'll just let that sink in. Shameless plug. Subscribe below. Like, share, subscribe. Gift subs to your friends. I'm still not seeing any subs. These are going in the oven for half an hour. Okay, these are going in the oven for half an hour. Yes. Wings up, baby. Wings up. 30 minutes on the clock. But it does all make a lot of sense to me. It really does. Like when you get older, it's easier. You're more likely to see the results of decades of bad habits, bad diet, lack of exercise, sitting on a couch too much, having an office job. The list goes on. Metalmando, we're making bread, buns. I just wove up some bacon. Just for you, I'll pop this out of the oven so you can see. I wove up this bacon and a couple of stacked sheets on the side where I always bake my bacon. And I'm roasting some garlic. When I say always, I mean in general, like at least 90-something% of the time, I do my bacon in the oven. I very rarely do it in a pan. Making bacon is right. I'm going to go take a quick peek to see what my frame loss is like and what the latency is, and I'll be right back, and we're going to start playing slowly with this stuff. I'll be back. Somebody dropped frames up to 20%. Not happy there. Focus. Okay, terribly sorry about that. My connection is wicked awesome, so I don't know why it's not cooperating. I'm gonna have to yell at someone. Casper's Cloud. Yeah. Being baked, watching baking bacon. It's good. It is a good time. I'm going to ask again because there were fewer people when I asked this earlier. Is there any interest in watching me make edibles? I haven't done it before. I'm waiting for Twitch to give me the thumbs up on making them live on a stream. Assuming they do, would all y'all be interested in watching that? I won't be consuming anything on the stream, but actually probably won't. I might taste it just for flavor, but that's it. I'll leave my recreational or medicinal consumption for offline use. Okay, I have 24-ish minutes for the bacon. When the bacon is ready, what I'm going to want to do is get a couple of sheets of paper towel doubled up, and then one on top, and I'm just going to throw the bacon weave on here just to it'll crisp up a bit. It's going to soak up some of the bacon fat, some of the grease. And the strips I will put off to the side as well. So I guess I should make some room there. Oh no, dangerously out of paper towel. Whatever will I do? I think it's time to freak out about this. Oh, I guess I can go get some more. Crisis averted. Let me go find a roll of paper towel. Ooh. Bounty Plus. No longer select a size or register trademark sheets. Well, I've never actually done it before, but I'm a bit of a research fiend. I spent a whole bunch of time in university and college. Yeah, the decarb is the step that I'm most interested in doing, and I've read a fair bit on doing that. Years ago, I was looking at getting licensed. This is before legalization in Canada. I was trying to get a license to grow like medicinal grade marijuana strains without THC, just for the CBD oil. And the university across the street has this wonderful lab that I could rent, reasonably dirt cheap with a CO2 extraction process. So the whole idea was harvest a bunch of bags, don't tell anyone what I'm doing, walk on over to the university with bags and bags of devil's lettuce, and run it through the CO2 extraction process and get all that wonderful, untainted by solvents and distillation and baking and shattering process, have pure CBD oil, and then I use that for various creams or lotions or potions or whatever. We also couldn't make medical claims, despite the research. In Canada, we weren't allowed to make claims about, we would not have been able to make claims about health benefits. So after much communication with Health Canada, it turned out that we couldn't apply for the license until we had the facilities built. I went, well, it's kind of hard to swallow the pill of I have to invest like 50-ish grand on building a facility for a grow op on the off chance that you guys still tell me off, because business partners and I don't want to, that's a tough pill to swallow. But the idea, the whole point was to keep people, to keep stoner teenagers from applying for license to grow things in their mom's garage, which I understand. We have yet another, my favorite streamers in the house. Original Slack, welcome. Okay, we have 20 minutes left of the baking. So right now is a fantastic time to ask me all the questions. Like literally all the questions. Oh yeah, it's awesome. And Sudeep's following me after this. So we're going to get to hear all sorts of rare tracks. That's my understanding. Looking forward to it. So I have here a couple of sheets, well, a 1 pound, 1 sheet. I'm going to do some buns in here. Well, because nothing is as cool as a slide rule. Okay, Snaggle Whiskers, I give up. Why are slide rules cool? You know what? I think the last time I used a slide rule was... like, I want to say 1981? 1980, around there. Yeah, give or take. Maybe 82 tops. And just for, oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a hardcore math nerd at heart. Like, all of my education, almost all of it, leans back to math. Yes, the interests. No, you mock me now, but after the zombie apocalypse and the giant EMP pulses happen, I'm going to be able to do complex calculations. Oh, Snaggle Whiskers, that's crazy. A lot of my friends, I did comp sci as well, on top of like the math and physics. Yeah, way too much time at school. Most of my friends from computer science, they absolutely sucked at mathematics. Absolutely sucked. And when we got to the 3rd and 4th year courses, like anyone that wanted to get into game design, which doesn't really, it especially doesn't work around here, just because there's no industry. There's very little tech industry in Manitoba to begin with. Yeah, these guys couldn't handle transformations. They couldn't do FFTs. They couldn't do rotations. They couldn't deal with 3D, let alone 2D math. Like anything to do with vector mechanics or like eigen anything was way over their heads. And even the crypto systems or combinatorics or any of the the computational computer science stuff, most of the guys completely bombed. And it was the predominantly, like, those classes were dominated population-wise by the foreign students that had a much stronger basis in mathematics. Like towards 4th year, I was one of the few. I mean, technically English isn't my first language, but I mean native Canadian close enough. I was one of the few native Canadians in those classes. Yeah, Gabby of Doom, and depending what you're doing, you don't need the math, and for the vast majority of your work, the tables are already done, the calculations are already done, the functions, the library, all that stuff is already written for you, and you don't really need to use it. But when you know what's happening underneath and you want to write your own classes and you want to write your own anything, your own containers, your own libraries, your own routines, just because you want to optimize stuff, it's really, really convenient. It's really handy. But yeah, do you actually need to use it in your day-to-day job as a programmer? No, you don't. Does it help? It can. It can. That's my little math rant of the day. One of my friends, when he was doing his PhD, it was in AI, and like graph theory was my area of specialization. both on the math side and the computer science side, because it's very much applied computer science related. Just for neural networks, it's like, Vlahos, I need you to write this for me. Just take a look at the structure and do your graph theory voodoo and make it pretty for me, please. Like, okay, cool. Oh, as far as making my place smell, that's a good point. I need to double check with my landlord. We have fireplaces in our suites, but we're not supposed to smoke in here, anything. But the caretaker said he doesn't really care if people smoke up by the patio, as long as the door's mostly open and it doesn't smell too much. But he doesn't care about us vaping. Yeah, or just some barbecued iguana on a stick. And that's the running joke. I moderate on an 80s dance stream, and anytime Mexican radio comes on, the DJ always gives me a shout out and encourages me to whip up a barbecued iguana recipe. And I'm like, I don't think it would taste very good. I mean, if I was south of the border and there was nothing else to eat, I'm sure I'd manage, but I don't know. Just like talking, salmonella, not my thing. So yeah, the decarbing, I'm a little concerned about the smell, so I should talk to my landlord or the caretaker and just let him know I am baking this stuff. I'm not smoking it, but it might have a smell. Well, truth be told, Snaggle Whiskers, if it moves, humans have probably hunted, killed, and eaten it at some point. Be it plant, animal, other people, slow-moving rocks, whatever it is. If it looks reasonably animate, we've probably hunted, killed, and eaten it. Burning sage is my friend. I should get my one of my friends to do a smudging over here too. I don't know if I could find iguana meat at a local grocer. It'd be it's quite the ask. Okay, so here we have the dough, which is basically doubled in volume. I hope we all agree. It's roughly doubled. I'm going to deflate this. Punch it down. I can go all Ike Turner on this because it's musical and topical. I'm not going to go there. I could punch this down, or I could just gently poke down some fingers. Look at the little snot bubble over there. It's fantastic. Oh, it's blurry. Damn it. Yeah, you can see these little bubbles in here. This is very, very glutinous because I kneaded the dough for an extra, well, you saw it, like probably 10 minutes longer than I normally do. So this is extra gluteny, which is going to make it extra awesome. I'm sorry my camera's not autofocusing. Damn you! Focus! I need to give it some drugs or something to focus better. Some Ritalin, yeah. I'm going to take my knife. And I'm going to chop this into one piece. I'm going to make a loaf. And I'm going to use this to make a couple of buns. So this 3-cup recipe would make a big poofy loaf of this size. This is like an 8.5 by 9, 4.5 by 8.5, 4.5 by 8.5. Just going to drop that in here. I'm going to let this rise a bit, but the one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give this a couple of little scores. Oh, that's really sticky. Nice. I can't believe my paring knives Needs sharpening. That's crazy. So I'm going to loosely cover this. I'm going to give this a quick spritz of oil so it doesn't dry out. And I'm going to let this rise just on the stovetop. It's going to stay warm enough up here. The oven's on. There's a vent on the corner where it gets a little warm, so this is going to heat up nicely. Heat up enough that it will help rise. This little sheet, I'm going to form a couple of buns out of this. And the weird thing is, even though it's only minus 20 Celsius, give or take, and it's super dry, it's actually chilly in here. And normally it's boiling in my apartment. Normally I have to open my patio door, balcony door. Well, it gets to minus 40. Fahrenheit, Celsius is the same thing at that point. It gets to minus 40 here during the middle of winter. And actually yesterday it went from minus 20 Celsius to above freezing to minus 20 within 24 hours. So the fact that I can walk today in my arthritis, I am in Winnipeg. Yeah. Where am I? Everyone knows I'm in Winnipeg. Holy geography, Snaggle Whiskers. You got all the skills. So I'm just rolling this this bun together, and I'm just going to throw this on my pan. And hopefully these end up being roughly the same size. I'm just rolling this into a ball. If there was if this didn't look pretty, if this wasn't super elastic, what I would do is just roll, just pinch and pull the outside and then tuck it underneath. So it looks nice and flat on top. The bottom's going to be a little mangled. If this doesn't stick together the way it looks here, it's probably because your dough's a little dry. And one way to quickly form these, you can just put it on your flat surface and flour it if you want. Oh, Snaggle Whiskers, which DJ do you follow? Like, is it Steve? Is it Brian? Is it DJ Nuvo who's in the chat? Oh my gosh, DJ Nuvo's here. Is it Sonic Boom? Who is it? If you look at the bottom, it looks fairly flat. It's going to be fine. Wait, what? Mad Zerglen, why do I've never heard of them. What the literal... What kind of music do they do? Like, I've been related to the music scene, especially the alternative music scene in Winnipeg since, like, hell, like the late 80s. And if I don't... I mean, I haven't been particularly active for the last, I don't know, 15 years, but I still know the major DJs. I know the key people. DJ Lasercat. I haven't heard of Lasercat. What the heck? So here's the buns. I'm going to give this... Yeah, we are getting choppy again. I'm going to go see if I can yell at my network. I'm just going to give these a quick spritz. Loosely cover them. I only have 5 minutes left on the bacon. Sizzle, sizzle, pop, pop. I'm going to loosely cover these. Put that off to the side. Lasercat. Huh. Okay, I'm gonna go yell at my network. Hang tight. Hopefully the music keeps playing. Don't run away. Okay, hopefully we're back up and running. I hope we're back up and running. Okay, so I'm, folks, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I do not know what's happening with my internets, but it's really not cooperating, and I don't know what to tell you. I just refreshed the stream, and I linked my cell phone. Hopefully this is all good. Hopefully we're all back. Hey, most people have come back. So this is what the bacon weave currently looks like. I hope it's not too choppy. And there's these strips of bacon. And you'll notice that they've crinkled up a little bit, but they haven't really deformed all that much. And if the bacon wasn't a wonky shape to begin with, this would look a lot prettier. And as it is, it's kind of sweet. Okay, everyone can hear me. We have mostly connection. Ah, gosh dang it. I turned everything off that I could in the place, and I'm running nothing. Yeah, I have no idea what's wrong with my internets. I'm gonna have to yell at someone. I'm sorry, everyone. We try to have a more slightly professional stream than this. Okay, so just with a spatula, I can pick this up. That's what the bottom looks like. You can flip your bacon weave halfway through the process. I don't think you need to. I don't think it's really necessary. Even patting just patting this down, it'll pick up a lot of the oil. And the part that's facing up is what used to be pan side down. So it's crisped up nicely. I could let it cook. Yeah, hopefully it's better. Again, I'm really sorry about the connection. I have no idea what's wrong. My download speed is still 600 megabits. The upload is frozen at next to nothing. So I just tethered my cell phone, which has crazy speed. I don't know if it's Twitch anymore. It might be on my end. So I'm gonna have a chat with my ISP. Okay, so we're letting this just hang out, soak up some of the oil. Delicious, delicious oil. And we have the other pairs of sheets of strips over here. I can probably pull this apart without it breaking. I don't know why I'd want to. It's really handy having extra strips of bacon lying around, because midnight snack, free sandwich filler. What else do you use bacon strips for? If you can think of a creative way, like, share, and subscribe. I mean, share in the comments below. Ugh, we lost half of our people. Dang it. Dag nabbit. But yeah, the bacon weave itself, for everyone that was tuned in earlier and saw me make it, there's really nothing to it. Yeah, there really isn't a whole lot to this. The garlic, on the other hand, has been in there for a few minutes longer than I wanted, which is fine. because the garlic smells absolutely glorious. Just going to leave these out here, not to soak up any grease like this. There's a little bit of oil on the bottom of the muffin pan here. And this is getting really hot. I'm just going to let the garlic cool down so I can play with it. Yeah, the bacon around here, it does not last for very long. And even though it's a pound of bacon, this is going to end up going into 3-ish sandwiches. And these 8 strips of bacon are going to be victims of drive-by bacon shooting. So I'm going to set my timer on for about 25 minutes. Okay. So these buns, they've actually puffed up a bit. I'm going to give these a light wash of what am I going to wash these with? Just a little brushing of olive oil and some salt. I could do butter. I could do the other things. I could do egg. Right now, I just want to stick to my tried and true favorites. I don't want to risk bad things happening, so get this on the camera. It's going to lightly brush some olive oil on here. These buns are probably going to be ready in something closer to 15 minutes. Actually, instead of 25 on the clock, I'm going to start with 12 just for these buns. And this loaf that has puffed up a fair bit in the loaf pan, this guy is going to need something closer to that 25-minute mark. It could be up to half an hour depending on the size of the loaf. Just going to quickly brush the top of this with some olive oil. I'm going to sprinkle some salt on the loaf and the buns. Sorry if some of this is off screen. I'm still getting a delay of a little over a minute. It's not cropping out as much. Well, that's good. That's good. Okay, we're almost ready to pop the bread into the oven. Just a quick sprinkle of some pink Himalayan salt. So we have 12 minutes on the clock, and we are going to do something for 12 minutes. Let's complain about my internet, shall we? Let's play the internet complaining game. You guys go first. There is one more thing to prepare, and that is the butter for the garlic butter. So let's do that now. Dooba-dooba-dooba-doo. I hope that's not copyrighted. Dooba-dooba-dooba-doo. Oh, and speaking of controversial, since I was trying to convince everyone that mainlining, shooting, and chugging bacon grease isn't unhealthy for you, there was a study out of Sweden not too long ago to suggest very strongly that salt is not the killer, and there's not a whole lot wrong with salt. But Casper's Cloud, let's be honest. Let's be serious for a moment. Everyone cares when you complain, right? And everyone immediately feels some sort of sympathy and or empathy, and they reach out to make your life better when you complain, right? 100% of the time. Ugh, poor doggos. I'm going to chop out about this much butter into the butter melting tron. And now we get to play with the garlic. Let's see if this is on screen. Okay. This is on screen, so I'm hoping that this is cooled down enough to play with. Am I burning myself? Am I burning myself? No, it's still pretty hot, but I'm not burning myself. Okay. Yeah. So this stuff, it's still a touch hot. Yeah, it's going to hurt, but the things I do for love. And internet fame. So if I squeeze this from the... Oh, that's really hot. Dang it. If I squeeze this from the bottom, these individual cloves will pop out. Oh, that's so hot. See, the very bottom here, sort of caramelized. But this is part of the hard root anyways that we're not going to eat. And up here... the tops of these cloves are, nice golden brown. Some of them are a little less golden brown. Some of them are a touch more. But overall, this is cooked. It's soft. It's very squishable. And I can just gently squeeze and pop these individual cloves out. Or just gently peel. And these things will just fall out. And the longer you let them roast, the more mild and then sweet the flavors become. So if this was non-subjunctive, the paper just comes off. I could squeeze, when this is a little cooler and I can actually hold it for a while, the cloves will just pop out of the paper. Or I can just gently scrape it out, and this is going to get mixed in with a fork into the melted butter. I'm going to have some really, really, really mild, very garlicky garlic butter. And speaking of garlic butter, I have a little bit of a rant about garlic butter and seafood, and that is, I'm basically completely convinced. Yes, Area 51. The other thing of which I'm mostly convinced is the reason people go gaga for seafood is because of garlic butter. And instead of serving lobster or crab or shrimp or whatever else you serve with garlic butter, I could probably serve styrofoam chips with a nice bowl of hot garlic butter, and people would still go crazy for it. And yeah, you can just squeeze the garlic cloves out of here. And if you squeeze them at all, you'll get like a little paste. Nom nom. Oh! That's awesome. That is some good stuff right there. Yeah. Yeah. So when the buns are done cooking, when everything is done, I'm going to cut out to the right shape of bacon. So I have the perfect amount of bacon to go into the bun. And then we're going to pretend that I have lettuce and tomato to go with it. I have lettuce, but bacon and lettuce without tomato, it's not the same. So this is starting to melt. I'm just going to throw this entire bulb of garlic, minus the one clove that I ate, because I'm a piggy. And I'm just going to mix this together with a fork. So Casper's Cloud, what we can do is, normally I do an entire tray. Like when garlic is on sale, during garlic season, what I will typically do is do an entire dozen heads, like bulbs of garlic. And then I will take some of those and pop the cloves out once they cool down completely. And I just pack them in oil and leave them in the fridge. But more likely than everything else, within a week it's all gone. I'll just leave some of the cloves out on the counter. And I'll just walk by and just pop a couple in my mouth, because when you let them cook, for more than half an hour, they start developing some sweetness. And let me tell you, sweet garlic, for me, it's hard for me to resist. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to make any drug analogies or comparisons. We've talked about video games a little too much today. I mean drugs. So I'm just going to gently press these garlic cloves down, squeeze the innards out, and just try to whisk it together. I'm going to get a little bit of paper. I'm going to get a bit of this hard stuff. I'll strain it out at some point before I let the butter cool down. But this garlic infused butter is it's gold. It really is. And sky's the limit on how you can mix it up. You can add whatever herbs you want to it once it starts cooling down a little bit. You can always throw in salt and pepper. The pepper, I think, doesn't really fit, but you can add whatever green herbs you want to it once it starts to cool down. Just a little bit. And if you want, put a bit of salt in there. Yeah. All the good stuff. Oh yeah, so if you want it sweeter and you want the roastiness, like the bottoms didn't really burn, and these were in for about 40 minutes. And I could have left these in safely for at least 5, probably 10 more minutes, give or take, with the tops being face up, not face down. So I think if you cook them the way I did, Snaggle Whiskers, that'll probably fix your that blackiness, unless that's something you just really want. Also, just a little bit of drizzle of olive oil on the top, I think, helps a lot too. And it just takes a few drops. And yeah, DJ Nuvo is a huge fan of the doggos. Now, waste not, want not. I'm going to take this stuff that's not easily dissolving, and I'm just going to leave it on this plate because I'm gonna snack on this later. I could use my immersion blender. I could use like my little hand mixer. I could let this cool down a touch more and put it in my blender and hope that I could scrape everything out. I could use a whisk. I could try to press this together. But really, I think this is well infused with a lot of garlic, so it's going to be... I don't like saying good enough, but it's easily good enough. And I could also just cut this up and leave the chunks. Take these small pieces and throw them back into the butter. I will demonstrate that. See, I don't mind the rustic cooking. I don't mind a bit of imperfection in the presentation. I don't mind an extra couple of pieces of ingredient in my food. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth and perfectly evenly distributed. I don't mind the occasional burst of garlic flavor. But these pieces that are on the cutting board, it's basically a paste right now. That's just going to take a little bit of uppy downy work with the knife to break it up. I think the stream's doing better. I'm just really, yeah, a potato masher would work. A potato masher would work. I don't have a good potato masher. I don't like them. You back off. So there's 12 minutes on the clock. So I just threw those little minced up, mashed up pieces back into the butter, sauce, just because I like that extra garlic flavor. But again, if I left the pieces on the counter, I'd end up eating them separately. Okay, so we have 12 minutes on the clock. I'll show you what the buns look like because they are almost done. Almost, not quite. These bad boys have poofed up a bunch. They have poofed up a bunch. The salt has still stayed on top, but these are going to need another 5 minutes or so, as is the bread. The garlic is done cooking. Very garlicky colored. Now I'm just going to let this cool down. I could pour this into a little butter dish of some sort and just leave it on the counter for a few days while we slowly pick at it. I don't know if this is even going to survive the night, because those evil kitchen fairies are going to be crunching on this, I'm sure, at some point. I shouldn't say evil. They're nice kitchen fairies. I think what I'm going to do, just to prevent the internet connections from doing this next time, is I'm going to try to shotgun the cable and my cell phone, because my cell phone connection is also amazeballs normally, and I think between the two of them it should be really good. And yeah, sorry, I do need to apologize, or I feel the need anyways. Maybe it's because I'm too Canadian. I just feel bad about the internet connection. I missed something earlier about the Winnipeg streamers and the high proportion of them. Like the only streamers that the gamer variety streamer, is that Husky Gaming, or who is that? Was it someone else? I didn't think it'd be her.
Well, the MyLiveChef person that Mac was, he also does gaming.
I think I mentioned a third streamer though.
Yeah.
And yeah, everything looks fantastic right now. So I don't know if it was just...
It's been fine ever since you
Yeah, it might be because I'm too Canadian. We really do apologize for a lot. And the joke about we bump into each other and it's obviously one person's fault, but both parties involved apologize, and it's a sincere apology. It restores some faith in my fellow human for a few minutes. Okay, so while I'm waiting for the oven to do its oven-y thing, this garlic is cooling. This garlic is done. I'm going to take this bacon weave and I will show you what we can do with it. Doop-a-doo. See, this is pretty rigid. Like this bacon weave it's going to hold its shape, right? I could take my scissors and cut basically any shape I want out of this, as long as there's enough lattice left to hold it together. But somebody on one of the past streams, they needed a show of love because they didn't think love existed, so I cut a heart shape out of a bacon weave. Apparently it worked. So I can take my scissors and cut this and it's going to hold its shape, or I can take my knife and cut it into pieces. So what I can do is I can just cut this into quarters, or I can cut this into the size of what I think one of the buns is going to be. The buns are actually a little too big. They're pretty dang big. The gamer streamer is Brian. Going to chef school here, then COVID. Snaggle Whiskers, that makes 2 Twitch streamers from Winnipeg that I don't know of. Huh. Brian. Yeah, the Twitch streamers that I know up here, it's myself. There's DJ Stevie G from DJ Steve from Winnipeg Dance Party. There's DJ Brian St. Clair from 80s Dance Party. There's DJ Sonic Boom. There is Husky Gaming 86. There's me. There's DJ Nouveau. And there's I think he streams under Tower of Insanity. He's a death metal bass player, but he streams games. Usually for Extra Life. I used to work with him at a call center years and years and years ago. Super cool guy. Who else do I know that streams? I think that's it. I think that's it. So the real question is, am I going to cut this with scissors or a knife, just so I can show you how how well this holds together. The weave itself is a touch small. I'm used to them being a bit bigger. That's what she said. I'm just going to cut this into quarters, and I'll just do it with the knife because the scissors are technically easier, so I'm just going to do it the harder way, and you're probably more likely to have a knife than kitchen shears. So I'm going to cut this piece right down the middle, and I'm going to cut this across here, right down the middle. Again, bacon is keeping its shape. I'm going to cut this in the middle. Holds its shape. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. There's my God, I'm totally brain dead. Strange Things Emporium and Ogre Mind, who's DJ Nouveau's bestie for the last infinite number of years. He's kept the alternative goth industrial music scene going for the last, like, single-handedly for the last 25 years. Ever since D Machina changed owners and then closed down 5 or 6 years later, there really hasn't been a whole lot of alternative music scene. Our two main dive punk bars, one of them flooded, got burned, bad things happened. It was already a a cesspool to begin with. And the worst one, I think it's still open, but nobody. There haven't been any shows for years because of the plague. Why are we doing the bacon weave in the first place? For a lot of reasons. The first one is the convenience. The second is the presentation. I mean, that's not even the second reason. The convenience, it's super easy to do. And then when you're making sandwiches, you can cut whatever shape you want and it holds its shape. So if I had if I had a loaf of bread, I could cut the bacon exactly, like I could put the loaf of bread down and cut around it. And then I would have a piece of bacon 2-ply. That's the exact same size of the piece of bread. So there'd be no overhang. There wouldn't be any bites that didn't have the exact same amount of bacon. And there's just something really, really cool about it. It's also a lot cleaner to cook. You can control the crispiness. It's convenient to cook an entire pound at a time. And you can't cook a pound in one pan. Like, you're gonna have to use a pan. You're gonna have to have 3 or 4 pans going on your stovetop at the same time, which isn't gonna work for anyone. Yeah, the bacon weave taco shell, it's been discussed. I'm pretty sure people have done it. I think that would be a little overkill. And I mean, do you want to do underkill or overkill? I've seen the mini cups where you'll take like a half strip of bacon, do a little cross, and then maybe wrap it around. And then you have the little, like a mini container of bacon. And then you can fill that with whatever you want. Like, you can crack an egg in there. You can make your little mini quiche that's bacon wrapped. That works fine. I don't like cooking eggs in the muffin tins like this with bacon. It just doesn't work. I don't like the way the eggs come out. I've never liked it. But you can fill this with some sort of whipped egg, or I mean, if you're not keto, you can do some sort of like mashed potato, or whatever you want to fill it with. Or you can just bake the cup as it is and have like these mini taco hors d'oeuvres. You could bake a little bit of taco meat in here with sprinkle some cheese on it, and then have like throw a dollop of sour cream and sprinkle some more cheese on top, or some guac on the side, and serve it fresh like that. Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. But as far as doing an entire taco shell, like an entire bowl out of one weave, I wouldn't. So these buns are done. Pizza. The bottoms, it's gonna shake these a little loose. Okay, I've not seen the bottoms yet. Let's see what they look like. Survey says a little darker than golden brown. Perfectly cooked. Perfectly cooked. Super hot pan, and also perfectly cooked. Right? Perfectly cooked. Now, these buns are a little too big. Sweet buns, bro. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, the reason why a lot of recipes, they stress, and they should stress, you let your dough cool, your bread cool. It's the same reason why you let your steaks rest. It's the same reason why you let your meatloaf rest. Because when you cook things, the moisture tends to concentrate in the middle, in the central core. So if I cut into these buns, there would be a lump of, it might even seem like uncooked dough. It's not, but it'll be really dense. It's gonna have a lot of the moisture stuck in the middle, and the area around it is gonna be dry and very flaky, very crumbly. So when you take fresh bread straight out of the oven and cut into it, and it doesn't matter how sharp your bread serrated knife is, you're gonna get a lot of crumbs out of it. The exterior part, especially the top third, is gonna be really dry and crumbly, and then you're gonna have this lump of wet stuff in the bottom. Now, it's going to be awesome because you can just slather butter all over it, and it's going to be epic. But when you get to that dense piece in the middle, it's going to sit in your stomach like a rock. And ain't nobody wants that. So you let the dough rest. You let it cool down to closer to room temperature. And that gives the moisture a chance to disperse, to evenly distribute itself through whatever process. It's usually osmotic pressure, but science. You just let the moisture distribute itself, and then you can cut into the bread and it's not going to fall apart on you. Same thing with steak. So when you cut into a steak straight off the pan, you get all that wonderful juice all over your cutting board or whatever. And sometimes you can use that to your advantage. If you put your seasoning, like your herb garlic and your other herbs, like your rosemary, your thyme, your garlic pieces that are just mashed on your cutting board, you can mix that all together and use the juice from your steak at the same time. Takes a bit of work. It takes knowing what you're doing. You get to serve it faster, and it's kind of really awesome. But the safest thing to do, loosely cover it with some foil to keep some heat in there. Let it cool down. Let those fibers relax, absorb that moisture. And that's how you keep a juicy steak. Now, the downside to letting your steak rest is the heat is going to keep it cooking. So it's hard to get the medium rare steak and let it rest, which is why you get these weird and almost contradictory, or these recipes that don't make a whole lot of sense. Like, you cook your steak at about 650 or 800 Fahrenheit on a skillet for like 75 seconds aside, and then you pull it off and let it rest. Because then the heat's going to keep cooking it for a few minutes, and then it's going to become medium rare. Who's got the gear to do that? Yeah, basically no one. But things like meatloaf, you should let it rest, because the moisture is still going to disperse. Although meatloaf is usually wrapped in bacon. Check out my Monday stream. It was sweet. I did a meatloaf tribute to meatloaf. Yeah, feel free to check out the stream. It was kind of fun. Actually, just check out the Discord, I think is the good place for it. You can check out my channel. There's the About. It's got all the social media links. I'm not going to pimp myself out too much here. Super hot. I'm going to let this bread rest. Yeah, I wanted to give this a little slit, and I went a little too berserk, and I'm going to show you the mistake that I made. Don't do what Donnie Don't does. I cut into this because I wanted these slits. I did it a little too late, and the dough was a little too sticky, and this paring knife, I really need to sharpen this. Like, this was completely my fault. But let's pretend it looks like this. It's perfectly cooked, and I will show you the bottom. And then I'm going to put this on a cooling rack, and this is going to cool down on a rack for many hours. Many minutes anyways. At least half an hour. Which is longer than we have left in the stream. But the buns are going to be cool enough to cut into very soon, so I will do the taste test live on stream. Just going to make a little bit of room here. You know, sous vide is, if I had guests over more often, if I wasn't cooking for 2 people, I would invest in a sous vide, and I would use it regularly. And I did acquire half a cow that's sitting in a friend's freezer, and I'm very tempted to get a sous vide. And I would, I don't know if it would be particularly interesting content for live, because the majority of the time is just watching this, you know, your pot slowly cook. But yeah, sous vide, then a quick sear, either with a torch or in a high temperature cast iron pan. It's the way to go. So I'm just going to flip this over, and hopefully it doesn't stick. Let my people go. Damn you, Pharaoh. I'm going to have to coax this a little bit. And by coax, I mean I'm just going around the edge. It's on screen, just going around the edge with my old spatula. And I'm just applying a little bit of pressure to break up anything that might be sticking to the bottom of the pan. and I think it's on this part of the loaf. I could let this cool down a bit more, and I might have to. I just wanted to pop it out so you could see what the bottom looks like. Is the third time the charm? Third time is the charm. Bottom is golden brown. Top is golden brown. It's perfectly cooked. I'm going to let this... They did want to be friends. I know, it's so sweet. I'm just going to let this cool down to something a lot closer to room temperature. I'm going to put this on a rack, which I will have to find and make some room. Okay, so these buns are still a little warm. I shouldn't cut into them, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to. And what I'm fully expecting, just based on the size, I'm expecting a lump about yay big, yay deep, right in the middle. Okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but you might be able to see this from here to here and from there to there. The texture, the consistency, and the color even is a little different on the bottom than it is on the top. I don't know if you can see that particularly well. Just trying to stretch this out a bit, but from here to the bottom and there to there, it's a little more dense and it's a lot more moist. So when you're making breadsticks, small rolls, small buns, you can serve those basically fresh out of the oven. When you get to something that's bigger like these, you need to let them sit for at least 10 minutes, which these almost did. These are still a touch bigger. I'd want to let these cool down for another 5 minutes, just to be completely safe. So here's these, and I'm going to take one more, just cut across the side. Like a good indication that it's fine is that this isn't breaking into crumbs everywhere. I'm actually surprised that it's not more moist, or yeah, more moist in the core here. It is cold and dry, and it's surprisingly cool in my apartment. Normally it's pretty hot, and normally I have to keep my balcony door open to control the temperature in here. So if the bacon weave was a little bigger, if the pieces were a little nicer to play with. Sauces for a tuna fillet. Well, I would, my immediate go-to would be some sort of a honey dill. You could use a dill and like rosemary. You can go for more of an, like a Mediterranean lemon and olive oil and dill. I like my dill. You can go for a hardcore, what's the word in English? Tartar sauce. If you really want. You could go Asian. You could make like a teriyaki for your tuna fillet. Like really, the sky's the limit. Tuna is normally, like fatty tuna, is a fairly mild flavor. So you either want to completely overpower it with your sauce, so the sauce itself becomes the focal point and the tuna is secondary, or you have something really mild. And part of it depends on how you're cooking the tuna. Like you could make some cool Thai fusion with like unsweetened never tartar. Yeah, you could use like peanut butter and soy sauce and like lemongrass or some fish sauce. It does work. Yeah, so seared, you can make. Uh-oh. DJ Genrock, happy or angry? Yeah. Oh yeah. So the garlic butter. I'm gonna throw some on this bun and give it a quick description. So I expected these buns were a little underdone. Like I know I'm looking for it, but I can see. I don't know if you can see this on camera. I can see it's still a little damp in this little semicircle, but it's good enough. It's definitely good enough, and this is it's not super crumbly, so this part's good. I'm just gonna take a spoon and my roasted garlic butter sauce. For anyone that's tuning in late, I roasted some garlic and I melted some butter, and the two made friends. So I've got some roasted garlic butter sauce. Yeah, lemon caper is good if you have them. Most people don't. I rarely have capers. I rarely have capers in my fridge. Usually it requires some planning, just like good capers. Ba-dum-bumps. It really depends on the flavors you like. Like up here, there's a honey dill sauce that we use for our chicken fingers and to dip into various fish fillets or like fish sticks. And apparently, nobody else on the planet has it. Like very few people have a honey dill sauce, which is more of like a honey mayo with dill. And it's super awesome. And apparently it's a well-guarded secret and exclusive to the Winnipeg area. I'm going to cut this little piece in half. Bring some over to DJ of the Nouveau, and I'll be right back. Okay, cheers. Let's dig in. Bottom is crispy, middle is moist, perfectly cooked. Touch sweet. Liken me the garlic butter. Yeah, it's good. So the extra bit of sugar is a part of why the bottom is a little darker than you'd expect from buns. It's because there's 3 tablespoons of sugar in the recipe. Also, when you're using a brighter pan and you have direct contact, you should, unless you've got some practice with your equipment, you should reduce the temperature by a bit, up to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and keep the cooking time the same. Just because of the heat transfer of the brighter aluminum versus cast iron. But I really like my 350 for cooking. Oh, that's good. This needs some garlic butter. Does somebody over there want the other half? What are some other sauces I could do with the fish? Like you could just go super basic and just a bit of lemon and oregano, a drizzle of olive oil, a bit of salt, fresh cracked pepper, and go for like old school Mediterranean flavors. I wouldn't go for anything overly fruity like a balsamic insert fruit reduction. If you're gonna do anything soy sauce based, I do like a light brewed soy sauce. Yeah, it really... Wasabi tuna. Well, you can make your own. I mean, horseradish by any other name, right? So the real treat for everyone is, at some point, I have 3, 2 life-threatening surgeries and 1 casual walk-in-the-park surgery lined up for the next couple of years. Go socialized healthcare. While I'm recovering from any one of those, especially the dual carpal tunnel, because I have to get my wrist and elbow done at some point, one of my clients is a teppanyaki master trainer, also a master sushi chef. So he is going to replace me on the stream for a couple of episodes. He owes me a million favors, and he's actually looking forward to doing it, which is totally epic of him. And at some point, we're going to have like a hardcore pro in this kitchen, which is super ghetto. Again, first world problems. I don't have a lot of room in here, and I kind of like that I don't, and my internet's dying again. I do like that I get to demonstrate basic cooking techniques without having the super elaborate kitchen, without having all the space in the world. I know, sorry, Snaggle Whiskers, I see the chop over here as well. We're almost done though. We're almost done. Yeah. Yeah, but everything I do here is basic ingredients, no gadgets, no fancy technique. It's all super duper straightforward. And maybe next stream I'll give you guys a quick tour. I might actually just record the tour and put it up on my channel on the About. About. Just to show you how little room I have to work with. Because between my computer, which is in line with this, to the counter over here is maybe 2 feet. And my counter space is basically 2 feet by 2 feet. That's not an exaggeration. And then I have my stove. And no microwave. Which is fine. The only reason I have for a microwave is for chocolate. But yeah, I will definitely be keeping everyone posted on... I don't have anything scheduled yet, so the catastrophic stuff is way down the road. And I think we're going to wrap up the stream there. So first question is... when Sudeep takes over or starts streaming, I guess I'm going to find out too what happens if he just hijacks the stream or if you need to refresh. So Sudeep, let me know when you're ready to start, and we will let our little experiment get started. You know, Snaggle Whiskers, I see the professional streamers that are in their restaurant kitchens, and I don't think it's accessible, and I don't think those 10-minute, 15-minute YouTube instructional videos with the jump cuts, I don't think they're not entirely useful to the aspiring, I'm trying to learn how to boil an egg, literally learn how to boil an egg, home cook. Because for one, I think I could be wrong on this, but I expect it's intimidating. And you just don't have the room, you don't have the gadgets, you don't have the knife skills to do what the person demonstrating does. Which is why I try to do everything as simply and as basic, keep it as basic as possible. Okay, so Sudeep, please let me know when you're about to hit start. And we'll see what happens. So after Sudeep says he's starting, give it like 15 seconds, then hit refresh if he doesn't hijack the stream. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I like Vinyl Resting Place's name.
Vinyl Resting Place has an awesome name. So while we're waiting for the internet magic to happen, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Make sure to tune in for all the streams that Shock is putting together for everyone. I'm looking forward to doing this on a weekly basis. Again, a whole bunch of Canadian apologies for the internet crapping out, and now it seems to be fine again. Go figure, now that I'm first world probleming, complaining about it. No, Sudeep, do it up. Do it up. I'm just babbling. Yeah, Snaggle Whiskers, there's a bunch of fancy technique stuff that I'm happy to do, but it's not really useful. And in the grand scheme of things, I don't expect anyone to tune in to see me do it, because I don't have the pro, S tier setup. I don't have all the gadgets. I don't have the, half dozen DSLR cameras with the production studio, with the beautiful lights, with the everything. I don't have the marble countertop or stainless steel everything appliances. I've got the really basic. Oh, failed to connect a server. Huh, those bastards. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to end it so Sudeep can take over. So Sudeep, give me 2 minutes and I'll wrap all this up. That's cool. I'm gonna pretend it's cool. Yeah, like I just can't compete with Gordon Ramsay. He's a way better dude in kitchen than I am. He has all of the experience, all of the skill, all of the budget, all the resources, all the production values. I wouldn't tune in to watch me instead of tuning in to watch Gordon Ramsay. But to tune into somebody live that you can ask questions, doing basic, really straightforward rustic, i.e. crap presentation, cooking that everyone can do at home, I think is more meaningful. That's my thinking anyways. Let me know if I'm wrong. Like, if you want me to get all sorts of fancy, I can, but I'm going to have to get some floodlights in here or something. Yeah. Okay, it's been 2 minutes. We are 5 o'clock Pacific time on the dot. You guys are the best. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to end this. Give it a few seconds for Sudeep to get started, and hit refresh, and we'll see what happens. And subscribe, damn it. Subscribe. Cheers, everyone. Stay safe. Me.